This is my 2023 Nissan Rogue SV all-wheel drive. This past weekend we got an insane amount of snow, and I've been super curious to see how good this all-wheel drive system really is. As you know, several vehicles are at least offered with some sort of an all-wheel drive version, but it's typical that these systems are pretty mediocre and only provide some minimal assistance over the standard front-wheel drive. Coming from an off-road background, it was pretty important to me that I had a truly capable all-wheel drive system. This Nissan Rogue is equipped with several different drive modes, and today I'm here to test how well these actually work. Alright, so to start off, we're going to go ahead and throw this into auto mode, and then we're also going to turn traction control off to make sure we can get the best idea of how this drivetrain is going to react. We don't want traction control engaging the brakes and hiding what the all-wheel drive is actually trying to do. So auto mode is kind of exactly as it sounds. It basically just adapts to the conditions that it can sense. So when it senses wheel slip, it will essentially choose the mode for you. So with auto, you're kind of going to see a variation of all the different modes throughout the RPM as I get some wheel slip. Now, let's go back, slow that down, and take a closer look. So one thing I noticed with auto mode here is with the heavy amount of throttle in the snow, it seems to engage the all-wheel drive almost immediately, as we can clearly see the front and back tires start to spin simultaneously. Which makes sense. Heavy acceleration means wheel slip, which means torque is quickly sent to all of the wheels. But now, when I ease into the gas a little less, we can see how the rear doesn't start to apply as much power until the front has had a chance to slip. This is a perfect example of how auto mode adapts to the conditions. Next up, we're going to put this in snow mode. So what you're seeing with snow mode here is it's basically designed to increase your stability as much as possible. So what that means is it's going to put most of the power to the front wheels before it engages the rear, and this is going to help with keeping the car stable and reduce oversteer, which is like drifting. So for the drivers that are out there that want to just remain in control as much as possible, that's what you're going to do here. One thing you can see here with snow mode, even with traction control off, it seems to struggle putting the power down and spinning the tires, even in this low traction snow. Not only is this providing a slight front bias for stability, but it's also automatically keeping the transmission and engine at a lower RPM. And although traction control is off, I have the traction control light flashing at me because it really doesn't want me spinning in this mode, which makes sense as your average driver wants to just give it gas and go without really thinking about it. The car is just adjusting for you. Next up, we're going to throw this thing in off-road mode. Alright, so as you guys all know, this is the mode for me. I am an off-road guy. You guys know this channel revolves around my Jeep, so I love this mode, and this is the one I was most curious about. And the cool thing with this one is off-road mode essentially engages the transfer case to react more like a four-wheel drive system. So this locks it into an even 50-50 split at all times. So as expected with the 50-50 split of off-road mode, we can see the front and rear immediately spin at the same time. And what's cool about this is with the traction control off, I don't seem to have anything fighting me. This thing is just ready to party with all four tires spinning and kicking the rear end right around. Seeing this result of off-road mode actually makes me really excited about the future potential of this vehicle. Next up, we're going to go over to eco mode. So as you guys can see here in this video, when I am launching in eco mode in the snow, it essentially does not want to let me spin at all. And that's kind of expected because eco mode is designed to where it keeps your RPMs low and just controlled for good gas mileage. So when you are punching it, trying to launch in the snow like I'm trying to do here, it just doesn't really give me the power that I need to be able to do that. I wasn't exactly flooring it in all of these scenarios, but I did all the same amount of throttle in every single one of these videos, and it's a pretty clear difference throughout the different modes. So there's really nothing overly exciting here. Like I said before, Eco mode is specifically designed to lower your RPMs for improved fuel economy. And just like we saw with snow mode, a lower RPM means less wheel speed and thus less spinning as well. Next, we're going to throw this thing in sport mode. So sport mode is kind of a unique one for me. I believe the way sport mode works in terms of the transfer case is more similar to the auto, because sport is more meant for keeping RPMs high, so you're always in the power band, and not necessarily a traction control setting like you would need for different terrains. So sport mode basically just let me be able to launch harder, which does increase the wheel speed, but in terms of how the transfer case is engaging, it is more similar to as if it was in auto mode. Just like eco mode before, sport mode isn't exactly a terrain setting. While off-road mode and snow mode both provide variable torque to the transfer case, sport mode and eco mode are simply throttle response settings. But for the sake of consistency, I wanted to be sure to replicate this test across all modes for the most accurate comparison. Last up, let's throw this back into auto mode, but let's turn traction control back on just to show you guys what kind of traction we can get launching exactly the same way I have been, but with traction control on, see how that reacts and how quickly we can take off the line. Although this isn't exactly something we haven't already seen, one key thing I notice here that you don't really see with the others is how you can feel a power drop once the wheels start to slip. With all the other modes and traction control turned off, everything was pretty consistent. But since traction control uses the brakes to slow down the spinning tire, as soon as I start to spin, the brakes grab and creates that extra resistance. Alright, so now that we have tested every single possible all-wheel drive setting, what do I think? I honestly have to say I am thoroughly impressed with how this thing performs. As I said before, I come from the off-road scene, so having something that has a very capable all-wheel drive system is pretty important to me, and it also really fascinates me. So doing this test was super interesting, and I think everything I found is really cool. And like I said, the off-road mode especially impressed me the most. With traction control off, I love the fact that I can gas it and it doesn't seem like I have any sort of electronic systems trying to fight me. And what's really cool about that is that means if I were to take this thing into some sort of off-road situation, I can turn off traction control and I don't have to worry about that trying to fight me from trying to get out of a bad situation. So in the end, this actually makes me super excited to kind of look into a little bit of future mods. As I've kind of hinted in a previous video, I'd really love to do a small lift kit as well as some better wheels and tires. So if you guys know of a company that makes a good lift kit for the 2023 Nissan Rogue, comment them below. And I'd also like to put some more rugged wheels. I'm kind of thinking something black, maybe a beadlock sort of style, not necessarily a real beadlock, but then I really want to do kind of a more aggressive all-terrain. I'm leaning towards a BF Goodrich, but let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I'd love to see what you guys recommend for the Nissan Rogue, and if you know anyone else out there that has built one, tag them below. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.